You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687. 687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. The takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do, and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Schrader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I am Rick Trader, and I'm coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network and simulcast on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Colorado Springs and Boulder, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California. Indeed, we are everywhere. We are everywhere. And I want to send a special shout out to our friends in Jacksonville, Tampa, Villages, Macon, Georgia, the places that were hit by Hurricane Irma, as well as our listeners out in Texas that were affected by Harvey. I send our best thoughts and prayers out to you all. I hope you are safe. I hope you can recuperate real soon. Joining me today as my co-host is the CEO and president of Frontiers of Freedom, George Landreth. George, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Rick, it's great to be with you.
Always great to share the microphone in this time with you, George. And of course, absolutely. You know, I started out the show mentioning the hurricanes and the victims of those hurricanes. Last night or over the weekend, there were a couple of very interesting events that took place. One was the Miss America pageant, which got to be let's trash Donald Trump as much as we possibly can. And then there was a radiothon, a telethon for the victims of the hurricanes. And yeah, that's all good, George, but it got to be another bashing of conservatives, this idea of global warming and climate change. Oh, that's the cause of these hurricanes. George,
and don't forget earthquakes. Beyonce also said earthquakes.
Earthquakes now.
I mean, she is obviously a super, super smart woman because, I mean, who knew that?
George, since 1850, there have been about 180 hurricanes that have hit Florida. But this one, Irma, was all because of climate change.
Yep, you got to love it. And the 12 years since a major hurricane has hit down in that neck of the woods and, on the Gulf Coast. And we are to believe that those 10 years, of course, don't mean anything at all.
No, not at all.
Just
this
year. Just this year. And this year proves climate change.
It started January 1st, George. Actually, let me take that back.
The 21st.
It didn't start on January 1st. It started on January 20th. But, George, is it a wonder? Is it a wonder with all the gloom and doom in the world that many adult Americans still go to bed wrapped around their teddy bear, with their arms wrapped around their teddy bear?
Well, that's an interesting I think one of the things that's kind of funny is they did a survey of 2,000 Americans, and apparently 40% of the adults in America still sleep with their teddy bear. I'm assuming most of those are Hillary voters.
Hillary voters and the snowflakes.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think teddy bears are great. I think they're awesome. But I think the idea as an adult that I would continue to have. I mean, I had a teddy bear when I was a kid.
Sure.
It was kind of cool,
Well, George, I actually have my first teddy bear still today. But when I go to bed, I like to have my arm wrapped around my lovely bride. I mean, call me crazy, but I guess I have grown up a little bit from teddy bears to lovely ladies. But, George, I guess a lot of the snowflakes out there haven't. And, of course, you got Hillary Clinton that's out there talking about what happened. And she can blame everybody and everything, George, why she lost this election, except for one thing, George. She didn't have a message and the people didn't like her.
Yeah. And, I've actually thought about it. I may have to buy a copy of her book, though, because it may be the only book I've ever seen where the cover of the book has not only poses the question, but provides the answer. At the top, it says, "What happened?" And at the bottom, it says, "Hillary Rodham Clinton." So I think there's a certain genius to this. I mean, I'm not normally an admirer of hers, but I thought, wow, you don't even have to read the book. Just the cover tells it all. And it was done unwittingly, I'm sure. What happened? Hillary
George,
Clinton.
I wish we were doing video with this program, because we would put up a picture of the cover of that book. But again, what happened at the top? Hillary Rodham Clinton at the bottom. And, George, speaking of rodents, as I call her, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and here's the segue. Speaking of rodents, apparently there's a growing number of rats in D.C.
That's what I mean, there is an interesting article, and it says that D.C. is being overrun by rats. Now, I suspect to most of our listeners, that is not actually worthy of a headline. It's like, I'm sorry, I already knew that. That's been true for years. But the headline in the Washington Post, oddly enough, in the D.C. politics section, bemoans the growing number of rats. And all I can say is I think most of America also bemoans the growing number of rats in Washington. But we're probably talking about a different problem, because they're talking about rodents, literally rodents, like, the little teeny things that run around and eat cheese. And I was talking about the duplicitous politicians. But at any rate.
George isn't one in the same.
Yeah, more or less. I think they visually look different, but if you were to check their DNA, they'd probably be the same.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's something else. Ancestry DNA has this new thing about where you can test your DNA. Well, I guess we'll have to test the DNA of all these politicians in Washington and then catch a bunch of rats. And let's do DNA testing on this bunch of rats.
And we'll find a common ancestor only a generation or two ago.
Well, right.
Certainly a common ideological ancestor, but.
Well, George, talking about Washington politicians, at least there is one. I guess we could call him a politician now. He was elected president of the United States. He is in Washington. He is in the White House. Donald Trump is doing what he said he was going to do. In fact, there's been a record number of bombs dropped on ISIS in August. So once again, Donald Trump is doing what he said he was going to do, dropping bombs on ISIS.
Yeah, and it's not just that August was the highest number. The June before August, meaning one of the first 5 months of his presidency, was the previous high. So it's just interesting. For example, they've already at this point. I take that back. As of August, the end of August, because that's where we have the count from, they had dropped more bombs on ISIS than they did in all of last year when Barack Obama was president. So it does, and we see the amount of area they control is reducing. And why that's important, it's not just important because the people who live there are no longer being, mistreated and so forth by these people and abused and tortured and caught on fire and all the other things they do, beheaded. It's that they were funding a lot of their operations by the taxes that they were collecting and the oil revenues that they could grab when they controlled land that had such things. And as we take land from them, their ability to shear taxes from the local populace as if they were sheep is taken away from them. So this is a twofold benefit. When you drop bombs on ISIS terrorists, you kill them, and you remove future funding sources for them. So it's a double benefit. It pays twice. And, Donald Trump, of course, was the, he was supposed to be the dummy, and it was, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton who knew everything, right? That's what we were told all last year. And Donald Trump's figured it out.
Well, George, we have to take a break now, but on the other side of the break, we're not done this segment of rats in Washington. We have some more news and stories about rats in Washington, but you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader, and we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, KRLN Radio, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7, Talk America Radio Network. Today's show, like all our shows, is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. Don't go away. George and I will be right back with some more rodents in Washington stories.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant. Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
I'm Sharon Engel, and I approve this message. I'm more convinced than ever that a constitutional free market conservative can win even in a battleground state like Nevada. Nevada's Congressional District 2 is a winnable seat where Trump won because these voters embrace the principles of sound governance and constitutional free market conservatism. The reality is the president can lead, but he cannot do it alone. In Congress, we contend with the Republicans who often do not support what the American people mandated on Election Day. Republicans in D.C. could lose this golden opportunity, and sadly, the biggest beneficiaries will be the establishment and crony capitalism. America is closely divided, with Nevada on the front lines of this ideological battle. I need to raise enough money to show that I have support to organize this campaign with literature, travel, media ads, and a small staff. Of course, the larger the amount, the more reticent others will be to challenge me in a contested primary, and the less credible the press attack will be. If you are one of the donors who will send $100 or more by June 30th, we will raise $100,000. That's good. If you give $250 or more, we raise $250,000. That's great. And if you give $500 or more, we raise $500,000. That's excellent. The more we raise in the beginning, the greater the odds are that we win. Please join me on Twitter at Sharon Engel and Facebook. Even though Reed is no longer in charge, the establishment machine lives on to defeat anyone who challenges the status quo of crony capitalism. You can help. Give online at SharonEngel.com or mail a contribution to P.O. Box 17373, Reno, Nevada 89511.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at midnight, log on to redstatetalkradio.com, or you could hear our show any time of the day from your phone by calling, and take this down, write this down, it is a new number, 712-770-9576, and again, that's 712-770-9576. Well, George Landreth, in the first segment, we talked about the number of rats increasing in Washington, D.C., and we have a few other rat stories here. One is Senator Patty Murray maxed out her donations on a child molesting mayor in Washington, in the state of Washington.
You're exactly right. It's kind of an amazing thing. If a Republican even gets a $5 check from somebody who is a bad guy, that Republican is expected to, engage in self-flagellation and, do public penitence for hours. But you obviously can receive a $5 check without knowing anything about the person. But when you write a check for hundreds or thousands of dollars, you'd usually know who you're writing it to. Patty Murray, the senior senator from the state of Washington, has been sending money to the Seattle mayor, Ed Murray. He's the fellow Democrat. He's not related to her, however, who announced his resignation recently. I think it was a day or two ago. It was earlier this week. I can't remember exactly what day it was. But he's been accused now on 5 separate occasions with 5 separate credible stories that he sexually abused children and is a child molester. So I just want to know, when is Patty Murray. She donated apparently I think it was $1,000. So it wasn't just Anyhow, I just think at some point, when does she have to say, disavow this? I want her to publicly disavow child molestation. She's been funding it. For all we know, he used some of that money to fund his little episodes where he took advantage of children and abused them. So why doesn't she? I want a statement from her, an unequivocal statement condemning child molestation. And if she doesn't give it, it means she supports it.
Well, George, in another story of a politician giving thousands of dollars to another crooked politician, a politician that it is rumored used to go down to the Dominican Republic to have sex with children, you've got Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey, the Obama clone, who gave $20,000 to another sexual deviant, Robert Menendez, who is the other New Jersey senator, who is on trial now. Birds of a feather flock together, or should I say rats, George Landreth. Rats like sleeping in the same hole.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Cory Booker has his own kind of sordid past and his own if you will, corruption issues. He, in his previous job in Newark, he's a slumlord, other such things. I mean, he's not a clean dude in terms of the political, if you will. There's some people in politics who have, kept a mile away from corruption. He's not one of them. He's been, up to his neck in it his entire career. But because he's the darling of the left and he's the Barack Obama clone, some would argue that he may be, in a few years, the inheritor of the Democratic Party, to kind of try to recreate Barack Obama's electoral magic. That's why it gets ignored. It's all okay. But $20,000, and it wasn't to help this guy get reelected. It's to pay for his legal bills. And the funny thing is, people. It's just, even if you assume that Robert Menendez has only done what he's admitted to, he is a crook, and he does not belong in the U.S. Senate. Whether he belongs in prison or not, obviously the trial will determine. But he's admitted facts sufficient for us to know he's a dishonest scumbag.
But that's okay, George, because Cory Booker, Robert Menendez, Patty Murray, the mayor of Seattle, they're Democrats. They're Democrats. Exactly right. So, boy, it never falls on them. You never hear about this in the mainstream media or the alphabet networks like ABC, NBC, CNBC, and I could go through the whole list. You never
I'll give you an example. The Washington Post has not been covering the Robert Menendez trial. You can find hardly anything about it. The major networks are hardly following it at all. There are a few media outlets that are covering it. But the truth of the matter is the vast majority of the mainstream media has said, we don't care. But they will spend night after night after night after night pursuing a crazy story involving Russia. It's been investigated now for over 6 months. In fact, actually, I guess about 8 or 9 now. And there's not been a shred of evidence discovered on the matter. And people can say, how do you know? And I will tell you how I know. The special prosecutor is looking at tax returns at this point. That means he hasn't found anything yet. So he's hoping he can find somebody did something wrong on their taxes. Because as you know, a special prosecutor cannot get nothing. He's got to find something on someone, and it doesn't have to be related to the original thing. At some point, he will justify the time and the money he has spent by getting somebody on some technicality. It won't be Russia, and it won't be Donald Trump, but it will be something. So
and it won't be Cory Booker. It won't be Robert Menendez. It won't be Patty Murray. Oh, because anything they spend their money on, it must be decent. And George, when we talk about Russia, I must remind our listeners that so far there hasn't been a shred of evidence found that there was any collusion between the Trump administration and anybody in Russia to infringe upon our election, to change a single vote, to get into a single voting machine. And by the way, George, if there was a Russian involvement in the 2016 presidential election, I have to ask you this question, George, and I'm sorry, I ask you every week, who was the president in November 2016, the night of the presidential election? Who was president, George?
So we're talking last November?
Yes, 2016.
I think I can remember that because it wasn't too long ago. We're talking about, 10 months ago. Just a minute. Let me Google it. I'm not sure. Let me Google. Let's see. Oh, hey, it was Barack Obama.
It was Barack Obama. So if there was a problem with our election, if somebody did get into our election and change the results in any way, either raise votes or lower votes or destroy data, Barack Obama was there. He was the president. It's his fault. It's his fault, George. So if there is an investigation into the Russian involvement in our election, why isn't Barack Obama being investigated?
I think that's a very fair question.
Why isn't John Kerry, who is the Secretary of State, being investigated? Why, George? Why is Loretta Lynch being investigated? She was
law enforcement.
Yeah, she was the Attorney General. Why aren't these people being investigated, George? That's what I'd like to know. But you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader, and we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network and simulcast on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California. You get the idea. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. Don't go away. George and I will be right back with more news and commentary.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do, and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
I'm Sharon Engel, and I approve this message. I'm more convinced than ever that a constitutional free market conservative can win even in a battleground state like Nevada. Nevada's Congressional District 2 is a winnable seat where Trump won because these voters embrace the principles of sound governance and constitutional free market conservatism. The reality is the president can lead, but he cannot do it alone. In Congress, we contend with the Republicans who often do not support what the American people mandated on Election Day. Republicans in D.C. could lose this golden opportunity, and sadly, the biggest beneficiaries will be the establishment and crony capitalism. America is closely divided, with Nevada on the front lines of this ideological battle. I need to raise enough money to show that I have support to organize this campaign with literature, travel, media ads, and a small staff. Of course, the larger the amount, the more reticent others will be to challenge me in a contested primary, and the less credible the press attack will be. If you are one of the donors who will send $100 or more by June 30th, we will raise $100,000. That's good. If you give $250 or more, we raise $250,000. That's great. And if you give $500 or more, we raise $500,000. That's excellent. The more we raise in the beginning, the greater the odds are that we win. Please join me on Twitter at Sharon Engel and Facebook. Even though Reed is no longer in charge, the establishment machine lives on to defeat anyone who challenges the status quo of crony capitalism. You can help. Give online at SharonEngel.com or mail a contribution to P.O. Box 17373, Reno, Nevada 89511.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth, President and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of our show, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or CCRS Network. And please like us and follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. On Twitter, it's Conservative Commandos, and on Facebook, it is the Conservative Commandos Facebook group page. Please follow us and like us and join our little club there on Facebook. We put up interesting information about our guests and show rebroadcast and the like. So, George, what's the latest goings on at Frontiers of Freedom? George, you got to take your mute off.
Oh, there you go. Yep, I was starting to answer the question, but I was just talking to myself. We've been working on some interesting things. One of the things I was actually working on today was working on trying to help Scott Pruitt, the EPA administrator, with his vision of trying to fix what's been going wrong at the EPA. He's been trying to get the EPA back on track. Obviously, we all oppose pollution, but in the Obama administration, opposing pollution became an excuse to essentially try to take over businesses and run them. And as a result of that, what we saw was, loss of jobs. We saw businesses shutting down. We saw all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And what I think most Americans want is a clean environment and jobs. They're not necessarily exclusive. And so I think the Scott Pruitt has been a pretty good advocate for those items, and he has. So we were essentially working on trying to encourage him in a number of ways to continue on with that, because we often talk about the deep state when we're talking about the State Department, but that's true at everywhere. And one of the things that you can be guaranteed of is probably half the employees at the EPA are trying to stop him at every course, whatever they can do to stop him.
George, a lot of people would like to know, including me, All right, Donald Trump's there now. He's our president. He's in the White House. Why can't he get rid of those rats in the EPA?
Well, it's interesting. One of his problems is that because we have turned everything over to essentially, we have most of the federal employees can't be fired. They really, it's virtually impossible to fire them. I mean, we have stories of employees that have spent 5 years doing nothing but looking at porn all day, every day. And you can't fire them for that. You have to write them up, report them, give them a chance to do better. And, if they keep doing it for another 5 years, then maybe we'll talk about firing them. In the meantime, no. So obviously, what you have to do to get fired is pretty difficult. And then, of course, the Democrats have been slow walking appointments like you can't believe. So most of the departments are woefully understaffed in terms of the top leadership that's there to make sure that the apparatus is working and getting things done that the administration promised he would do. And that's, of course, part of their plan. That was, that's been their plan. That was their goal. The idea was, let's see if we can, hijack things. And that's what they've been doing.
George, I would like to see President Trump just to give every one of his appointees a recess appointment. Wait for Congress to be out of town, which they are quite often. They'll probably, this is September. Oh, they'll probably be going out of town for the Columbus weekend. Wait till those rats are out of town and give all his nominees recessed appointments. And I would like to see I'd like to see him do something else. Exactly what President Ronald Reagan did with the air traffic controllers. Fire them. Fire them all. Hire all new ones.
I'd love to see that. I think, we'll probably have to change some of the laws. I personally think that it makes more sense that the president appoint who he chooses and who he likes to the essentially hire all the federal employees, and then he can't say that they're not doing what I've asked them to do. At least anyhow, it's because the federal bureaucracy is so big now, and the left has been so effective at infiltrating it that basically what happens is when Barack Obama wants to do stuff, there's complete and total help in doing what he wants to do. We didn't see the same kind of leaking of his transcripts of telephone calls and things like that. But when a Republican's elected, they got all up in arms and they're going to do everything they can to stop him. And so I'm kind of the point where I feel like we need to change the rules and just say that whoever the president is, he gets to hire who works for the federal government, because those are the people that are going to ultimately implementing his agenda. And if that means people have to lose their jobs, so be it. They can go out and find other jobs. That's okay. The rest of it. I don't know why in the government you shouldn't have to ever lose your job. Everyone else does. We all have the potential of losing our jobs in the real world. Only if you work for the federal government are you immune from that.
George, you should have brought this up a little earlier in our program when we were talking about Hillary Clinton. But there is a report out, or a story out, of security contractors saying that the Clinton State Department silenced them on the Benghazi lapses. And I think that's important for us to talk about.
Yeah, I do, because I think what it shows is that we were always right about Benghazi. If there was no blame there, if Hillary really did do a good job and it was just an unfortunate occurrence, because let's be honest, sometimes it does rain on the good and the bad, right? So maybe it wasn't her fault. But if that were the case, she wouldn't be silencing people and making sure they can't speak. That's what somebody does who has a guilty conscience and who knows they're to blame. And so as a matter of fact, what this shows is that Hillary was as guilty as sin, that she did all the things that we've always said she did, that there is no excuse for her, that she was a terrible Secretary of State. She was a failed Secretary of State. People died on her watch. And, it's a fair question to ask. It was a fair issue, even though the other day she was talking about how it was given way too much attention during the campaign. She was talking about Fox News, spent way too much time talking about Benghazi.
Well, as my mother always used to tell me, George, those who have nothing to hide, hide nothing. And maybe she should have wrote something about that in her book. Maybe she should have finally been a woman enough, I wanted to say a man enough, but a woman enough to come out and tell the American public the truth about that Benghazi mess. 4 Americans died, including our ambassador. We've never gotten a true story out of that.
That's no, exactly. What we got was just lies and obfuscation. That's all we got. It's very frustrating because as a practical matter, they lied through their teeth during a presidential election rather than tell the American public what they did. To this day, we still don't even know where President Barack Obama was that night.
No, there was hours that he was missing. He was missing from like 5:30 to 11:30. No one could get a hold of him. Leon Panetta, who was the Secretary of Defense, couldn't get a hold of him. I forget the guy's name, Chief of Staff, couldn't get a hold of him. They couldn't get a hold of him. They couldn't find him from 5:30 to 11:30 at night. And then the next day he goes running a skinny little butt out to Nevada on a fundraiser. He goes on a fundraiser, and our consulate is in flames. 4 Americans are dead, including our ambassador. What's important to Barack Obama? Getting his skinny little butt to a fundraiser. George, I hate to do this, but it's break time again. Time sure does fly when we're having fun. But you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, KRLN Radio, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7, Talk America Radio Network. We're everywhere. Don't go away. George and I will fill you in on who our guests are for today.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do, and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
I'm Sharon Engel, and I approve this message. I'm more convinced than ever that a constitutional free market conservative can win even in a battleground state like Nevada. Nevada's Congressional District 2 is a winnable seat where Trump won because these voters embrace the principles of sound governance and constitutional free market conservatism. The reality is the president can lead, but he cannot do it alone. In Congress, we contend with the Republicans who often do not support what the American people mandated on Election Day. Republicans in D.C. could lose this golden opportunity, and sadly, the biggest beneficiaries will be the establishment and crony capitalism. America is closely divided, with Nevada on the front lines of this ideological battle. I need to raise enough money to show that I have support to organize this campaign with literature, travel, media ads, and a small staff. Of course, the larger the amount, the more reticent others will be to challenge me in a contested primary, and the less credible the press attack will be. If you are one of the donors who will send $100 or more by June 30th, we will raise $100,000. That's good. If you give $250 or more, we raise $250,000. That's great. And if you give $500 or more, we raise $500,000. That's excellent. The more we raise in the beginning, the greater the odds are that we win. Please join me on Twitter at Sharon Angle and Facebook. Even though Reed is no longer in charge, the establishment machine lives on to defeat anyone who challenges the status quo of crony capitalism. You can help. Give online at SharonAngle.com or mail a contribution to P.O. Box 17373, Reno, Nevada 89511.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader. And again, for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites. That's the best place, ccrshow.com or CCRS Network. Or at midnight, log on to redstatetalkradio.com, or you can hear our show any time of the day from your phone, simply by calling 712-770-9576, 712-770-9576. You don't need an app. You don't need to download anything. You just need a telephone and that number. George, couple of great guests joining us today.
That's the truth. First off, we have Phil Kerpen. He is the president and founder of American Commitment. Friend of the show. He's a friend of mine. He has been somebody who has done a lot of really excellent work fighting in the battle against liberalism and fighting for liberty and freedom. We're going to talk to him about the trial going on with Senator Bob Menendez. It's a corruption trial. Phil's been following it closely. He's exerted a lot of leadership on this. And I think it'll be both informative, and I think he'll help us understand maybe what we should do about it, too. Because right now, it seems like Congress is trying very hard, the Democrats in Congress, I should say, want him to serve whether he's convicted or not. And he's got something to say on that. And then our next interview is Dr. Cal Beisner, and he is the founder and the national spokesperson for the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. And they're active in a number of issues, but as they are a leader in the issue of climate change and distinguishing between what's going on, fact and fiction, fake news, real news. And we've had some very unfortunate events, weather events, and of course the left has seized upon these as opportunities to say, see, there is global warming, so we thought we'd talk with Cal about that. He can give us a good perspective on what's going on there and tell us kind of what's going on the ground and what the real situation is. So I think it'll be worth a great conversation.
George, it'll be especially interesting to hear from Phil Kerpen from Americans Commitment. Phil Kerpen is the guy that outed Van Jones, so that makes him a hero in my book.
I'm with you. Phil's a good guy, and I think it'll be a very interesting interview because I've talked to Phil about this topic, so I have a good idea of some of the things he'll say. I was at a meeting last week where I asked him to give us an update on that, and he did a great job. So if he does half as good a job for the interview that he did last week, it'll be a home run or a grand slam.
I'm sure it will be. Well, George, earlier in our show, we started out talking about the Miss America pageant that got to be a Donald Trump bashing, and then the telethon, which got to be a global warming infomercial. But there was something else in the news that has been garnering a lot of attention. And I don't know why these celebrities, I don't know why these sports personalities have to venture into politics. They do. For instance, like Colin Kaepernick. And by the way, that cost him his career. But also you have this commentator.
It didn't help that he stunk either, but yeah.
Well, that's beside the point. You have this ESPN commentator who come out and called Donald Trump a white supremacist who surrounds themselves with other white supremacists. Now, George, in times past, when an ESPN anchor has come out and said things, especially of a conservative nature, people like Kurt Schilling, they got fired. Oh, right. Not Janelle.
Yeah.
Not Janelle.
Yeah, right. They basically said we talked to her and she understands that was a no-no. And it's just interesting. All he did was he had a social media posting in which he disagreed with I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically he disagreed with the transgender agenda, and they fired him and said, because we're inclusive. Well, my question is, are they going to be inclusive when it comes to half the country, or a little over half the country, actually? But so it's interesting, the double standard that they have there, because he did not accuse anyone of something as vile as being a white supremacist. Mm-hmm. He disagreed, as I recall, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't have the tweet in front of me. My recollection was he made a smart crack about the transgender kind of political agenda and how kind of... Well,
it was about the bathroom. It was about the bathroom thing in North Carolina.
Yeah. And my guess is he said the sort of thing that half of America and, 2/3 of the people in North Carolina were already thinking. And he got fired for it. It's only a select few nut jobs who actually really believe in their heart of hearts that Donald Trump is a white supremacist.
Well, Jamel Hill.
That's just anyhow. It's ridiculous. I mean, I'm to the point now. Maybe we shouldn't watch ESPN. We shouldn't watch the NFL. They can all just they can all stew in their own juices, and we don't have to watch them anymore.
Well, George, not only should we not watch them, we should let their sponsors know that we're not going to watch them. We should let the sponsors know, as long as they're advertising on those shows, we're not going to buy their products. George, conservatives have control a huge part of the economy. And I really believe that we need to use our economic power to let people like ESPN and Disney and ABC and the sponsors of SportsCenter with this Janelle Hill, let them know how we feel about it. And we're not going to support these programs. We're not going to support these people, and we're not going to support these companies. We need to let them know that, George.
Yeah, I find it frustrating. I'm not normally somebody who says I want to organize a boycott, even though I do think it makes perfect sense. When you know that somebody doesn't support your values, why put money in their pocket so they can fund fighting you more powerfully against your values? But I just know, the NFL's ratings have been going down now for a year. I can't think of any other explanation. I hear people give me all kinds of stupid explanations. College football. Let me tell you, my entire life they've had college football. My entire life. And yet at that entire time, the NFL was growing. All of a sudden now, and it seems to coincide with Colin Kaepernick and the whole, protest sort of thing. Anyhow, I think it's pretty obvious what it is, and I think that's a good thing. I think people ought to tune out. People ought to, I'm not saying you have to, but if you're, if you're annoyed, let your annoyance be heard. That's what the left always does. They don't have to be annoyed.
Well, George, I think it also has to do with their programming, why their ratings are going down. I swear to God, George, there was an evening that I sat down to watch television. I was looking for a game. It was in the middle of baseball season. I turned on ESPN, and on one of their channels, they had a beanbag toss. I swear to God, George, they had a beanbag toss. On another of their channels, they had a women's college softball game. And on the third ESPN channel, George, that I get, they had the WNBA. Now, this is right in the middle of the baseball season, George. ESPN had nothing to cover. They couldn't think of anything to cover except a beanbag toss. Beanbag toss, George?
Beanbag toss is super popular.
To who, George?
To people with a diminished mental capacity. In other words, to Hillary Clinton voters. The demographic to whom, the ESPN reporterette was referring, or was, the demographic to which she appeals.
Well, George, these celebrities, these so-called artists and entertainers and athletes, I really do think they're going off the deep end, George. There's this guy. He's a rapper. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Is it Extension?
I think so. I think that is his name. Now, oddly enough, I, like you, am not really up on exactly who the big rapping stars are, but that's how I would read it.
But this guy, he was in a music video showing him hanging a child. Hanging a child. Now, that child happened to be a white child, but hanging a child. George, I don't know why anyone would put up with this kind of garbage, but it's what it is being thrown in our faces day in, day out, day in, day out. And when you talk about expressing your beliefs, well, Jamal Hill could express her belief, and all she gets is a little slap on the knuckles. However, there's a farmer out west who was told they couldn't sell their produce in a particular town because of the way they thought about same-sex marriage.
Yeah, that's right, because that's the problem with America is farmers who grow vegetables, but in the privacy of their own home, object to the gay political agenda. That's a big problem. We got to nip that in the bud. But when a rap star wants to hang children, lynch them with the old-fashioned lynching type stuff in a music video, hey, that's hunky dory. We love that stuff.
They're just expressing themselves.
This is the crazy left, and I mean crazy.
George, it's their way. It's their right to express themselves. However, when a group of conservatives wanted to have a free speech rally in Boston, these idiot leftists shut them down. George, I hate to do this, but we got to go to a break one more time, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader, and coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network and around the world with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, KRLN Radio, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7, Talk America Radio Network. Don't go away. On the other side, we'll be introducing our guest, Phil Kerpen. Be right back.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do, and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
I'm Sharon Engel, and I approve this message. I'm more convinced than ever that a constitutional free market conservative can win even in a battleground state like Nevada. Nevada's Congressional District 2 is a winnable seat where Trump won because these voters embrace the principles of sound governance and constitutional free market conservatism. The reality is the president can lead, but he cannot do it alone. In Congress, we contend with the Republicans who often do not support what the American people mandated on Election Day. Republicans in D.C. could lose this golden opportunity, and sadly, the biggest beneficiaries will be the establishment and crony capitalism. America is closely divided, with Nevada on the front lines of this ideological battle. I need to raise enough money to show that I have support to organize this campaign with literature, travel, media ads, and a small staff. Of course, the larger the amount, the more reticent others will be to challenge me in a contested primary, and the less credible the press attack will be. If you are one of the donors who will send $100 or more by June 30th, we will raise $100,000. That's good. If you give $250 or more, we raise $250,000. That's great. And if you give $500 or more, we raise $500,000. That's excellent. The more we raise in the beginning, the greater the odds are that we win. Please join me on Twitter at Sharon Engel and Facebook. Even though Reed is no longer in charge, the establishment machine lives on to defeat anyone who challenges the status quo of crony capitalism. You can help. Give online at SharonEngel.com or mail a contribution to P.O. Box 17373, Reno, Nevada 89511.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. I just want to remind our listeners, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, you can check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com. You can also go to Red Nation Rising Radio and Red State Talk Radio. Today, we have Phil Kerpen. Now, Phil is a personal friend, and I know him well. He is a true patriot. He is the president and founder of American Commitment. He used to be with Americans for Prosperity. He's been a thought leader in the conservative movement for a long time, and he has been following closely the trial going on in New Jersey involving their senior senator, Senator Menendez, Robert Menendez. So first, Phil, welcome to the Conservative Commandos. I appreciate you spending time to be with me here today.
Hey, George, great to be with you.
Now, fill us in on what's going on here.
Network news is acting like it doesn't even exist. The trial of a sitting United States senator doesn't rate mention on any of the network newscasts. I find that very odd. But just to recap the trial for folks who are not familiar with the background, and a lot of this happened years ago because he stalled this out so long. So some people may have forgotten what they did know about the case. Basically, the senator is on trial for bribery, honest services fraud, and making false statements. And there are a variety of counts on each of those three. bribery crimes, and his co-defendant is an eye doctor from Florida named Solomon Melgen, who has already been convicted in a separate trial of one of the largest Medicare fraud schemes in U.S. history. He stole over $100 million from Medicare, and that's pretty central to the bribery case as well, because the bribes in this case took the form of a lavish lifestyle of luxury that this eye doctor shared with Senator Menendez. He had full access to his private jet whenever he wanted to take it, to go to luxury resorts in the Dominican. His private villa at Casa de Campos, a luxury resort in the Dominican in particular, was the usual destination, also trips to Paris and elsewhere. And in return for this sort of international luxury lifestyle, in return for those bribes that were provided in that form, the senator took a number of official actions. And those official actions included getting visas for supermodel girlfriends of Dr. Melgen, and there are at least 3 that have been brought up at the trial, one from Ukraine, one from Brazil, and one from the Dominican. They're all very fetching. Supermodels, the word for it. So Menendez got the visas approved. They had been rejected, at least in one case previously, and the Menendez interceded and got their visas approved. He tried to steer a port security contract to scan incoming cargo in the Dominican Republic to Dr. Melgen, who has no background of any kind in security. He's an eye doctor. But Menendez tried to get DHS to lean on or I think the State Department to lean on the Dominican Republic to grant him a port security contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But what I think is the most significant pro quos for the quid of that international luxury lifestyle, and this has not yet been covered at the trial. It's coming next week. He tried to get the Medicare fraud investigation dropped, and in fact, and remember, this Medicare fraud, the money stolen from Medicare, from me and you and all the taxpayers listening to this was paying for this lifestyle. The eye doctor stole $100 million from Medicare, and that's what was paying for the private jets and the luxury resorts and everything else that Senator Menendez was enjoying, all of these bribes. Menendez, in return, tried to get the investigation dropped, and at the time, it was only an $8.9 million Medicare fraud investigation. It ended up being more than $100 million by the time he was convicted. But Menendez actually sat down with the Secretary of Health and Human Services at the time, Kathleen Sebelius, in Harry Reid's U.S. Capitol office and told her to intercede and drop the investigation and essentially to rule that Melgen had done nothing wrong with all of the money he had stolen from Medicare. And the nature of the fraud, I don't know how much detail you want here, George, so stop me if you want.
No,
the nature of the fraud was an injectable drug called Lucentis that is used in certain eye procedures, and it comes in a single-use vial. And Medicare pays $2,000 per vial for this drug, so it's a pretty expensive drug. Dr. Melgen was taking one vial that's indicated by the manufacturer for a single use on a single patient, and he was spreading it out and using a smaller amount from that same vial in multiple patients. So he would say, take one vial, open it, use it instead of on a single use on one patient, use it on 2, 3, 4 patients, and then he turned around and billed Medicare a full amount, a full dose for each patient. So just to use the simplest example, if he took a vial and split it in half, used it on 2 patients, he would then bill Medicare $4,000 as if he had used 2 vials. And he racked up millions and millions of dollars of fraudulent billings by using this method. And it also was contrary to the medical instructions of the manufacturer. It may not have been medically safe to use in that fashion as well. And Menendez sat down with Secretary Sebelius in Harry Reid's office and said, drop the dispute, say what he did is perfectly fine, and that he can keep overbilling Medicare in that same fashion. And Kathleen Sebelius, this is a little bit disturbing. She didn't say, no way, that's unethical, how dare you ask me that. What she actually said, Georgia, she said, are you sure I have the legal authority to intercede here in this billing dispute? And they said, we'll have to get back to you. And they were preparing a law memo for her, arguing that she did have the legal authority to drop the investigation when sort of the story of the luxury trip and the jets and everything else first broke at the Daily Caller in 2012, and that kind of all collapsed. Obviously, at that point, she wasn't going to intercede, and in the ensuing years, he's now been convicted of the Medicare fraud scheme. So there's now no doubt that what he was doing was absolutely criminal.
Wow. Now, is his defense, I didn't do these things? Or is he saying, yeah, I did these things, but you're imputing to me motives that didn't exist because I'm really a stand-up guy and I was just trying to, be a stand-up guy.
It's now the defense theories. There have been two theories offered in the opening statements, one by Menendez's lawyer and one by Melgen's lawyer. Menendez's lawyer, Abby Lowell, who's probably the best white-collar defense attorney in America, at least for these political cases, very powerful attorney. His theory of the case is, if you remember the Biz Markie song from the 1990s, "Just a Friend," that's his defense in this case. Literally, his defense in the case is they were just friends. It's they were just friends, and what Abby Lowell basically said in his opening is, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, look, friends let friends use their private jet whenever they want, and friends let friends stay at their luxury villa in the Dominican whenever they want, and friends sometimes try to get Medicare fraud investigations into their friends dropped, but there's no quid pro quo here. There's no bribe. This is just a friendship, and we shouldn't criminalize friendship. That was the Menendez lawyer's statement, which, if you think through the implications of this, it basically means bribery is totally legal as long as you form a friendship with whoever you're bribing. I mean, that's the implication of the defense theory here. I don't think the jury will be compelled by that, but that's what they're going with, is the friendship defense, at least Menendez's lawyer. Melgen's lawyer, in his opening statement, asserted that they were victims of racism by the Department of Justice. And mind you, this is the Obama Department of Justice that brought this case. The indictment was in 2015. They said that it was racism against Hispanic Americans, that the prosecutors were targeting them for the normal fellowship of Hispanic Americans who behave this way, and it's outrageous that they would be targeted for being Hispanic. So those are the basic defense theories of the case as offered in the opening statement.
Because they're basically saying, we're Hispanic, this is how we do things. They're kind of implying basically Hispanics do corrupt business this way. It's just us. And now you're trying to punish us for being us. I mean, like, how racist is that?
It was a very odd choice. Especially because, look, this is a jury in Newark, New Jersey. A pretty downscale jury economically. Half the jury is black. I don't think they're going to buy the idea that, this is how Hispanic people behave. I don't see how that works. I don't.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That strikes me as pretty amazing that they would think this is a plausible way to do things. Well, we've got to take a quick break in just a moment. So if it's okay, let's just remind our listeners that we're coming to you on the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, and of course around the world on the internet with, and I might add, Al Gore's amazing internet, with a certain level of dripping sarcasm in that statement. With American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AMFM 24/7. We're also, of course, coming to you in Tampa, Macon, Georgia, Milwaukee, out in Long Beach, in Los Angeles, California, Las Vegas, in Pittsburgh, and other stations in Pennsylvania as well. So you can always tune in to us, whether it's through the traditional radio waves or the internet. We will be right back.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do, and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
I'm Sharon Engel, and I approve this message. I'm more convinced than ever that a constitutional free market conservative can win even in a battleground state like Nevada. Nevada's Congressional District 2 is a winnable seat where Trump won because these voters embrace the principles of sound governance and constitutional free market conservatism. The reality is the president can lead, but he cannot do it alone. In Congress, we contend with the Republicans who often do not support what the American people mandated on Election Day. Republicans in D.C. could lose this golden opportunity, and sadly, the biggest beneficiaries will be the establishment and crony capitalism. America is closely divided, with Nevada on the front lines of this ideological battle. I need to raise enough money to show that I have support to organize this campaign with literature, travel, media ads, and a small staff. Of course, the larger the amount, the more reticent others will be to challenge me in a contested primary, and the less credible the press attack will be. If you are one of the donors who will send $100 or more by June 30th, we will raise $100,000. That's good. If you give $250 or more, we raise $250,000. That's great. And if you give $500 or more, we raise $500,000. That's excellent. The more we raise in the beginning, the greater the odds are that we win. Please join me on Twitter at Sharon Engel and Facebook. Even though Reed is no longer in charge, the establishment machine lives on to defeat anyone who challenges the status quo of crony capitalism. You can help. Give online at SharonEngel.com or mail a contribution to P.O. Box 17373, Reno, Nevada 89511.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. We've got with us Phil Kerpen, who is the president, founder of American Commitment, and a great patriot, somebody who is a real and legitimate thought leader in the conservative movement. So he not only fights for conservative solutions, but he actually thinks of good conservative solutions. I also want to remind you, if you want to hear rebroadcast, you can always check out our websites. CCRS Network, CCR Show, both .coms. You can also go to Red Nation Rising Radio and Red State Talk Radio. As I said, we've got Phil Kerpen with us. We have been talking about the Menendez trial. Phil, this is kind of an odd thing because, like I said, there's a few print media outlets. I know the Washington Post does not seem to think this matters. They've not covered it much. Why is the media disinterested? I mean, you'd think a U.S.
You would think the visuals of the girlfriends alone would be a ratings bonanza.
Yeah, and isn't some of this weren't some of them kind of questionable age anyhow? Too. I mean, so it's not just that he was out kind of gallivanting around
it's
the
interesting.
country.
You know, a lot of people remember that when the Daily Caller story originally broke in 2012, part of the story, kind of the central part of the story, really was this allegation that Melgen and Menendez were with underage prostitutes in the Dominican, and that has not been charged. That's not one of the charges in the case, and so the prosecutors, either that didn't happen, or I think more likely. They just thought that would be a difficult case to make, and these other charges were stronger, and they wanted to keep it focused on that. Interestingly, sort of to that question of did this happen or not, that aspect of it. there were so I don't remember the exact procedural posture, but there were some motions at some point in 2015 where Menendez's lawyers were trying to say that these stories were planted by the prosecution to bias the jury pool and to basically to smear the senator. They the stories about the underage prostitutes, and the Department of Justice's response to that. And you can find, there was a pretty good article about this in the Daily News sometime in late 2015, the New York Daily News. You can find it pretty easily. The Department of Justice's response to that was basically, I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically, even though we didn't bring those charges, we do think that that did happen, and if he continues to pursue this line of reasoning, we'll defend that it actually happened. And his lawyers didn't mention it again after that, but I thought that was kind of interesting. So they do seem to have evidence that happened, even though they chose not to bring those charges. And so I usually don't talk about that aspect of it, because what they actually did charge is so is so outrageous and so criminal that I don't think we need to get into things that the prosecutors chose not to bring. But people do ask about that because it was so central to the early coverage of the scandal.
Right. How in the world does how's this gone on so long?
Well, the scandal broke in 2012. And the story really got pretty well developed in the media and the press through 2013. And one of the things that I argued at the time is, and Senator Menendez was at the time the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which made him one of the most powerful members of the Senate and one of the most powerful Americans in terms of our foreign policy to the world and all of the issues that run through that committee. And one of the things that I argued at the time is I said, look, this guy's got to resign. He's got to resign because the fact that he could be indicted at any moment is a huge problem for the separation of powers and for the ability of the Senate to conduct foreign policy in an independent way, because the administration has massive leverage over him by saying we could indict you anytime you disagree with our position or say something we don't like. And, to Menendez's credit, I think that there were times that the administration tried to pressure him using the threat of this investigation hanging over his head, and he did not buckle to that pressure. He remained a pretty strong critic of the Obama administration on things like the Iran deal and on in the Cuba policy and other things. But I do think that that's why this took so long, is they wanted to hold it out there to squeeze him, to control him, to have the threat hanging over his head. So I think that was really outrageous. To the extent that that's true, and a lot of people think that happened, that was pretty outrageous misconduct by the Obama administration. What it does not mean, and this is a leap that some people make incorrectly in my view, it does not mean in any way that Menendez is innocent or that the prosecution itself is politically motivated. If anything, it means that he benefited from this being stalled and delayed because they perceived political leverage from that. But the facts are still the facts in the case, and he's still, in my opinion, pretty clearly guilty. But I think that's part of why it took so long those first couple of years, is they saw political leverage in keeping the possibility of an indictment hanging out there. Now, after the indictment was finally issued in April 2015, we have this other question: why did it take 2.5 years to get to trial? And that is because Menendez tried to argue that the speech or debate clause of the Constitution protected all of his actions. And so, when he was trying to get the visas approved and when he was trying to steer the port security contract, trying to get the Medicare fraud investigation dropped, his argument was those were all actions of his in an official senatorial capacity, no different than giving a speech on the floor of the U.S. Senate, and therefore they're protected speech or debate as a senator, and they cannot be prosecuted. And that argument lost at the district court. It lost on appeal to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court rejected cert. And so that's what took so long between the indictment and the trial, was him pursuing that pretty frivolous claim. And then, ironically, now he's back. Now he's at trial, and he's making the exact opposite factual assertion as part of his defense. In addition to the friendship defense, they're also arguing that the acts he took were not official acts. And so, the idea that after spending 2.5 years arguing these acts were so super official that they're constitutionally protected as speech or debate, now they come back to court and they're making the opposite factual stipulation. They're now representing that these acts were not in any way official. They were totally informal. They had nothing to do with his office of senator, and that's the motion to dismiss they filed based on the McDonald case that the judge said he's going to rule on after the prosecution rests. And the government's response brief is really strong on this point of, look, I mean, he conceded the opposite factual position for 2 years for the purposes of his speech or debate clause appeals. He doesn't now get to revise his representations of the facts to suit his new legal theory.
One of the things that I think is interesting is just kind of the day-to-day happenings in this trial.
I mean, the facts and evidence are just so overwhelming that I don't think the first week has gone very well for Menendez at all. I mean, for instance, they heard from an executive at American Express who runs their points program. One of the bribes, alleged bribes in this case, was the gift of a Paris hotel suite that Melgen paid for with his American Express points. He spent 650,000 points on this suite for Senator Menendez, and they asked the
that's some room.
It's a lot of, it's a pretty fancy suite.
650,000 points.
650,000 points, and Menendez supposedly said he was going to. The reason it was acceptable for him to take this gift and not report it and everything else is that as soon as he had enough points, he was going to reimburse them back to Melgen. Well, the American Express executive said at the rate Menendez was accumulating points, it would have taken him 30 years to have enough points to pay back Melgen for the 650,000 points. And 2 years after he stayed in that Paris hotel suite on Melgen, he spent all his points on a grill. So he was not saving them up to pay him back in any way. I thought that was pretty damaging. And, the other one that I thought was very damaging was a Menendez staffer who actually tried to, I don't think he was there. I think he was there because he was subpoenaed. I didn't think he wanted to turn against his former boss, but they had him basically explaining how he got visas for all of these supermodel girlfriends that Menendez interceded to get them approved. In one case, visas for a 22-year-old Dominican model and her 18-year-old sister had been rejected, and Menendez got them a second interview and a reversal, and they got approved. And this particular staffer sent an email from his personal email address to Menendez's chief of staff's personal email address that said none of these visas would have been approved if not for Bob Menendez. And I always think it's interesting when they use the personal email. It's like, people still don't get that prosecutors will discover your personal email address, and it really just makes it look like you were trying to hide something. So I thought that was very damaging for Menendez. And then they had two of the three supermodel girlfriends take the stand. And while I don't think their testimony was particularly damaging, I think the prosecution wanted the jury to see them to sort of make clear the kind of lifestyle that Menendez and Melgen were living on the private jet and the resorts with the girls and so forth. And I think that optics, that perception is going to be pretty damaging with a jury of regular people from Newark, New Jersey.
Wow.
And then George, and then yesterday they heard from the pilot who flew the plane that Menendez claimed he never flew on, and then after he got busted, he claimed he only flew on 2 times. And this one pilot, he was one of the 2 pilots who worked for Melgen. Just this one pilot said that he flew Menendez on 16 flight segments, and he was such a regular special passenger that he stocked the plane with the special fruit juices that Menendez liked to drink. So that was pretty damaging too, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got our time's about up, so I want to ask you 2 things. If you were to predict an outcome of the trial, let us know what you think that outcome will be. And then secondly, how can our listeners follow you?
I think Menendez's best chance will be his motion to dismiss based on the McDonnell precedent at the Supreme Court, and the judge is going to rule on that, as I said, after the prosecution rests. If he doesn't win that and it goes to the jury, I think he will very likely be convicted. So I give him I probably give him about a 25% chance of getting off on the motion to dismiss, just because the Supreme Court so severely narrowed what counts as an official act that I think he's got a real chance on that. But if he fails on that, I think conviction's going to be something like an 80 or 90% likelihood. You never want to say total confidence because juries can do unpredictable things, and we've all seen that many times over the years. But I think if he doesn't win that motion to dismiss, a conviction becomes very, very likely. And people want to see. I've been tweeting a lot about this trial in particular, and you can see me on Twitter at Kerpen, my last name, K-E-R, P as in Peter, E-N as in Nancy. And if you want to see all our work at American Commitment is on the website, americancommitment.org. One of the things we have going there is a petition to ask your United States senators if they think that Bob Menendez should be allowed to stay in the Senate even if he's a convicted felon bribe taker, because believe it or not, Democrats are floating the idea of letting him stay even after a conviction, which I just find completely astonishing. So we're trying to get them on the record on that. So far, no Democratic senator will even answer the question, which is not a good indicator. So that's on our website at AmericanCommitment.org is a form letter you can use to send that. And we're on Facebook. Just type in American Commitment. You can find us that way.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Phil. I just want to remind our listeners, we're coming to you on the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. Don't go away.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do, and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
I'm Sharon Engel, and I approve this message. I'm more convinced than ever that a constitutional free market conservative can win even in a battleground state like Nevada. Nevada's Congressional District 2 is a winnable seat where Trump won because these voters embrace the principles of sound governance and constitutional free market conservatism. The reality is the president can lead, but he cannot do it alone. In Congress, we contend with the Republicans who often do not support what the American people mandated on Election Day. Republicans in D.C. could lose this golden opportunity, and sadly, the biggest beneficiaries will be the establishment and crony capitalism. America is closely divided, with Nevada on the front lines of this ideological battle. I need to raise enough money to show that I have support to organize this campaign with literature, travel, media ads, and a small staff. Of course, the larger the amount, the more reticent others will be to challenge me in a contested primary, and the less credible the press attack will be. If you are one of the donors who will send $100 or more by June 30th, we will raise $100,000. That's good. If you give $250 or more, we raise $250,000. That's great. And if you give $500 or more, we raise $500,000. That's excellent. The more we raise in the beginning, the greater the odds are that we win. Please join me on Twitter at Sharon Engel and Facebook. Even though Reed is no longer in charge, the establishment machine lives on to defeat anyone who challenges the status quo of crony capitalism. You can help. Give online at SharonEngel.com or mail a contribution to P.O. Box 17373, Reno, Nevada 89511.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Conservative Commandos, we have our next guest, but before I introduce him, I want to remind our listeners that you can always hear a rebroadcast of our show. To do that, you just got to check out our websites, CCRS Network and CCR Show, both .coms, ccrnetwork.com, ccrshow.com. You can also go to rednationrisingradio.com and redstatetalkradio.com. Always many ways to listen to us in the event that you are not in one of the many listening areas through traditional broadcast media. I am very pleased to introduce the next guest. We have with us Dr. Calvin Beisner. He is the both founder and national spokesman for the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. And he is, of course, a friend of the show. He's been on the show before. And I thought that with some of the things in the news this last week, that Cal would be the ideal guest to kind of give us an update on what's happening and what of it makes sense and what of it's completely bonkers. Cal, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
Thanks very much, George. Glad to be back with you.
You know, we have had some unfortunate, obviously, and actually tragic events in Houston, weather events in Houston and in Florida.
Yes, indeed.
And every time something bad happens, I mean, even earthquakes now are blamed on global warming, which I find very humorous almost. But what you see is that this becomes a political piñata that they beat on. And I guess my question is how much of that should we take seriously? How much of this is, there are a few things that are true. Warm water is a fuel, among other weather factors, that can help fuel a more severe hurricane. And they claim, of course, that there's global warming, which is warming the waters, and therefore it's made it worse. There's lots of problems and all that, but there's just enough truth that some people kind of go, oh, maybe that's true. And so I guess my question is where's the stand on that?
Well, I mean, the first thing to recognize is that the whole claim that human-induced global warming had any significant contribution to either the occurrence of or the magnitude of the intensity of Hurricanes Harvey and Irma is just plain silliness. Now, what you're seeing there when the global warming alarmists point to these things is what Dr. Roy Spencer, who's one of the world's foremost climatologists, pointed out in a book that he wrote recently called An Inconvenient Deception, How Al Gore Distorts Climate Science and Energy Policy. This is a refutation of Gore's new movie and book titled An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power. Dr. Spencer points out that what Gore does, and this is exactly what so many of these alarmists do, is he will point to events that happen naturally anyway, and then he will blame them on global warming. And that's exactly what we've got when folks make this sort of a claim. Now, you mentioned that warmer water does contribute to more powerful storms and to more rainfall because of those storms. Well, that is true. That's some basic physics. But the real question is, how much, right? And we can answer that this way. All the carbon dioxide that mankind has added to the atmosphere since the Industrial Revolution can be calculated from first principles to have reduced the overall climate system's ability to cool itself by at most 1%, more likely about 0.25%. Now, in that case, AGW's contribution, that is anthropogenic global warming's contribution to the frequency and intensity of storms is at most 1%, more likely 0.25%. So, in other words, the 130-mile-an-hour maximum sustained winds of Hurricane Harvey, well, 128.7 to 129.675 miles per hour of that would have happened anyway. And of the 50 inches of rainfall that came down from Harvey, 49.5 to 49.875 inches would have fallen anyway. Now, that's assuming that all of that increase comes, or all of the increase in global average temperature comes only from the CO2. And in fact, there are plenty of empirical data showing that, as a matter of fact, much of it does not. come from added CO2. So, frankly, hurricanes like this have happened many, many times in the past. They weren't blamed on global warming then. There's no reason to blame them on global warming now. And frankly, we just finished just barely short, 1 month short of 12 years without a single major, that's Category 3 or higher, hurricane making landfall in the U.S. That's unprecedented for the whole time that we've been keeping records of this sort of thing, which goes back into the late 1800s.
So that would suggest then, if we were looking closely at the last 12 years up until a couple weeks ago, and we assume that every weather event is somehow directly related
by global warming.
Caused by global warming, then it would seem that global warming clearly isn't happening. But they weren't saying that. I don't recall anyone saying, "Oh, another year went by, another year, now a decade."
Yeah. Or instead, we could say, "Yeah, good old global warming. It kept us from having hurricanes for 12 years." I mean, that's the kind of reasoning, and it's faulty reasoning, but it's the kind of reasoning that the alarmists do. If you don't have the hurricanes, oh, that must be because of global warming. If you have the hurricanes, oh, that must be because of global warming. Now, logicians will tell you that that is a fallacy called tautology. You have made your hypothesis in such a way that no matter what the evidence is that's brought, you can explain it. And something that explains everything really explains nothing. It's unfalsifiable, totally unscientific.
Yeah, I mean, they basically, if there's floods, they say it's global warming. If there's drought, that's also global warming. If there's lots of snow, that's global warming. If there's not lots of snow, that's global warming. If there's forest fires, that's global warming. It's just everything is. Earthquakes now cause global warming. It's nutty. I'm assuming that next week when I want to go to a blog to see how my favorite NFL football team is doing, I will find that their quarterback had a lower rating because of global warming. It's just like you said, something that explains everything doesn't actually explain anything. Now we need to take a break in just a moment, but I wanted to drill down a little on this question. It's important for our listeners to understand climate changes all the time. So it's not an interesting statement to say, to ask if climate change is real. There is climate change. It changes all the time. There used to be an ice age, and now we're not in an ice age. Where I'm sitting right now, at one point, was covered in ice, 15,000 years ago. And now it's a balmy, warm place with, really nice. That happened, and yuppies and SUVs didn't do it. Nor did cavemen actually do it. It just happened. This debate really centers on, to the extent climate changes, how much do we make it change? And I assume, and that's where this whole theory breaks down. I always find it odd. They say, oh, you're a climate denier. I don't deny the climate. My problem is they have not given me enough scientific evidence to link the changes we see today with man's behavior. Since the changes we see today are well within historical norms, they have to explain to me why last time these things happened, it clearly couldn't have been the fault of power plants or cars or anything like that, but now it is.
Right.
So how do you synthesize that question to help our listeners understand how to divide up, logically this debate, so they don't run around saying, "Oh, there's no such thing as climate change," which isn't actually true. But it's true to say something else.
Yeah. The real question is not whether climate changes, but what's making it change, and how much should the different factors making it change contribute. Now, we know from history that climate has changed massively many, many times throughout Earth's history without human emissions of CO2. But we also know from basic physics that if you add CO2 to the atmosphere, there should be some contribution to warming. It should be a little bit warmer than it otherwise would be. And the interesting question is, how much? Now, the computer models on which the alarmists depend say that for every doubling of CO2 in the atmosphere, you should get about 3 degrees Celsius of global warming. But the empirical evidence is that instead, for every doubling of CO2 in the atmosphere, you'll get some warming, but it probably is so slight that we can't detect it. That's not to say it doesn't happen. It's just simply to say the empirical evidence, and that's the real key to science, the empirical evidence says it's so slight that we can't detect it. And therefore, it doesn't make any sense for us to try to be fighting it. To say that we should spend $1 to $2 trillion a year implementing the Paris Climate Agreement over a period of 70 years, so 70 to $140 trillion, and result in a reduction in global average temperature of only 0.3 of a degree Fahrenheit in the year 2100, that's $23.3 to $46.6 trillion per 0.1 of a degree Fahrenheit reduction. That just doesn't make sense. That's the kind of thing that Roy Spencer explains in his book, An Inconvenient Deception, which, by the way, your listeners can get free as our thanks for a donation of any size to the Cornwall Alliance. Just go to cornwallalliance.org and subscribe to our email newsletter. They'll find out how to get that free this month.
We've got to take a quick break. I just want to remind you that we're coming to you on the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant. Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do, and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
I'm Sharon Engel, and I approve this message. I'm more convinced than ever that a constitutional free market conservative can win even in a battleground state like Nevada. Nevada's Congressional District 2 is a winnable seat where Trump won because these voters embrace the principles of sound governance and constitutional free market conservatism. The reality is the president can lead, but he cannot do it alone. In Congress, we contend with the Republicans who often do not support what the American people mandated on Election Day. Republicans in D.C. could lose this golden opportunity, and sadly, the biggest beneficiaries will be the establishment and crony capitalism. America is closely divided, with Nevada on the front lines of this ideological battle. I need to raise enough money to show that I have support to organize this campaign with literature, travel, media ads, and a small staff. Of course, the larger the amount, the more reticent others will be to challenge me in a contested primary, and the less credible the press attack will be. If you are one of the donors who will send $100 or more by June 30th, we will raise $100,000. That's good. If you give $250 or more, we raise $250,000. That's great. And if you give $500 or more, we raise $500,000. That's excellent. The more we raise in the beginning, the greater the odds are that we win. Please join me on Twitter at Sharon Engel and Facebook. Even though Reed is no longer in charge, the establishment machine lives on to defeat anyone who challenges the status quo of crony capitalism. You can help. Give online at SharonEngel.com or mail a contribution to P.O. Box 17373, Reno, Nevada 89511.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Conservative Commandos. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of our show today, check out our website, CCRS Network and CCR Show, both .coms. You can also go to Red Nation Rising Radio and Red State Talk Radio, again, .coms. You can always listen in to Conservative Commandos. I've known Cal for more than a decade, and he has been following the many issues, but certainly the climate change issue. And if you want somebody who's going to deal with the facts fairly and accurately, he is an excellent source, and we've been discussing this whole thing. So, did you get a chance to either watch or see or hear about the telethon that a lot of the left folks were involved in?
No, I didn't, George. I've been a little busy here prepping for and enduring and recovering from Hurricane Irma.
Fair enough. That makes sense. They were raising money, and I appreciate that they were raising money.
Yeah.
But they started off with kind of an odd. You had Stevie Wonder with this weird kind of. When I say weird, it was like church organ music in the background. But what was weird is I wasn't at church, and then he talked about how you'd have to either be, in his words, I thought it was odd that he would say this. Stevie Wonder telling us that we were either blind or stupid if we didn't believe in, global warming. And then you had Beyonce telling us that one of the things that global warming had caused in the last couple weeks was a severe earthquake somewhere on the other side of the globe. And I thought to myself, can't you people just help somebody who's hurting right now without your sanctimonious, idiotic, stupid tripe? It's just, I don't get it. It's like every moment is a chance to advance their politics more than it is to help.
You could probably fit all of their knowledge of the science of climate change into a thimble. I mean, they're wonderful entertainers, but they are not climate scientists. They're not scientists of any sort. They're not historians of climate. They're not historians of environment. They're not economists of energy production and distribution. They have no knowledge about this, and yet the sad thing, I think that the far sadder thing than that they would voice their opinions publicly is that so much of the American public will believe them.
Yeah, I mean, an example would be Beyonce says that, and I guarantee you half the listeners kind of in their head go, oh, okay, yeah. And obviously, it's not like when you or I speak on this topic, the whole world tunes in. But Beyonce tunes in, and it's on the Twitter explodes, and everything else. So it's just, to me, it's an interesting. Yeah. You have essentially the blind leading the blind, literally, because you have Stevie Wonder leading us on climate change discussions, complete with church music in the background, which to me suggests that for them this is a religion. I actually appreciate church organ music. I enjoy it every Sunday morning, but I'm not worshiping Mother Earth, and I'm not worshiping climate change dogmas and so forth when I go to church. I think it's a little higher cause there.
Yeah, USA Today reported a couple of days ago that faith-based charitable organizations have provided 80% of the disaster relief so far following Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. And I think that's just fantastic. I mean, this is a great demonstration of how Christian compassion properly reaches out. And as I thought about that, I thought, everything government does, it does very inefficiently. It's just the nature of the beast. Can you imagine if the 20% of disaster relief that was done by government agencies hadn't been done, but that the money behind it had been available to the faith-based organizations instead, we'd have seen even more disaster relief actually getting to the people who need it than what we have seen. And so, this is one of the reasons. This is one of the reasons I'm so very much in favor of turning more and more of government activity to the private sector, particularly private charitable organizations, and getting government back to its basic tasks of law enforcement and national defense.
Yeah, you make a good point there. If you think about a key component of most every religion, and certainly in Christianity a big deal, is the idea of being charitable, having this pure love in you that causes you to help people wherever you possibly can. And that devotion to that's important. And what's interesting is when it's done privately, it's done so much more efficiently, because generally the people who do the labor do it for free instead of having to pay them, a salary and a retirement plan. They just show up. I remember when our church, we have already sent people down. I personally went up to New York during the Sandy problem and spent time there, as did my teenage sons, and literally just showed up at people's houses, walked down streets and says, what can we do to help? And started cleaning out houses and, getting sand and sludge and mud and pulling drywall off of walls that were destroyed, whatever. I don't know how that gets valued. I don't actually care because the people, but when people keep track of that, if the government does that, that just means they hire contractors to come in and do this stuff. And when we did it, I don't even know if it gets recorded as being done. I suspect that it's tremendously understated, but I think it's important. And you make a good point on the value of people with a commitment and a faith.
Yeah, another really simple example of that comes from what happens so often when hurricanes hit particular areas. People who live in especially vulnerable areas or in homes that are not built to more recent codes need some place to weather the storm, to shelter. Well, we put up 2 families in our house through Hurricane Irma this weekend. We've done that in the past with hurricanes, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. But we're just one of thousands and thousands of households around the state of Florida who, during Hurricane Irma, put up friends who didn't have homes that they could be sure they'd be safe in. None of that's going to be counted in terms of the cost. But if those people had to be housed in hotels paid for by government or something like that, the money amount would be huge. This is something that, as I say, religious people, and I'm a Christian, particularly have this call to love our neighbors as ourselves. And when we do this, we can get so much more done with so much less than what government does.
That's the truth. Our time is about up, Cal, but I wanted to pose 2 quick questions to you. How do people keep up with what you're doing, what the Cornwall Alliance is doing, and then if they want more information on these sorts of issues we've talked about, how they can do that. But I also wanted to magnify what you just said. I totally agree. I mean, I too come from a Christian perspective, and to me, government is, in my view, often trying to crowd out and would like to take over this field because it becomes a way for it to, if you will, if used as an economic opportunity. If it can take over the charity field, then it can demand that only it can help the poor and the disadvantaged, and therefore justify more taxes, more federal programs, etc. Whereas I think the reality is we can do that better, and historically have done it better.
Yeah. But, in fact, I just blogged about that just this morning at Cornwall Alliance's website, cornwallalliance.org. How much do we really need big government for disaster relief? And I think the answer is hardly at all. If government will just simply make sure that the laws are obeyed, that we don't have crime waves going along with disasters, looting and things like that. And if it will, clear the highways so that relief can travel and get there, if it will do that, then charitable organizations are capable of doing all the rest and doing it a whole lot more efficiently than government can. So anyway, CornwallAlliance.org.
CornwallAlliance.org. Thank you,
right.
Cal. It's been great to have you on the show. I want to remind our listeners that we are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. As we always say, we are everywhere.
Well, George, I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. George, for people who want more information about you or Frontiers of Freedom, how can they reach you?
Well, they can on Twitter. It's just at George Landrith. That's Landrith. And I'm on Facebook, and of course our website at Frontiers of Freedom is pretty simple. FF like Frontiers Freedom .org. FF.org.
FF.org. George, it's the best website address I had ever could think about. It's short and simple, frontiersoffreedom.org. Well, that's it for now. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not from government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and for their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do, and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back control of your health care while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
Don't miss Old Navy's Saturday Steal. Tomorrow only, get incredible deals on all your favorite Old Navy styles. All dresses are 50% off. Plus, super soft leggings are just $6 for women and $5 for girls and toddler girls. And comfy tunic tees are just $10 for women, girls, and toddler girls. Hurry in for our Saturday Steal. Tomorrow only at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Valid 9/16. Excludes in-store clearance dresses, leggings, and tunic tees. Select styles only.